As many of you who follow the activities of the Farsight Institute know, we are currently engaged in a project known as the Time Cross Project, where we use remote viewing to perceive the most newsworthy event of a given month, and we do the remote viewing a month in advance. I'm Courtney Brown, Director of the Farsight Institute. Our first episode in our Time Cross project was to include May 2016 as the first month for the project, but we were still working out the basic elements of the project, and we were just beginning to think about changing the project to use an automated process to pick the target for the month based on news analysis. Well, anyway, we ended up not being able to include the remote viewing work for May in the project because the project rules and structure were still in flux. Nonetheless, we did obtain some remarkable remote viewing results for that month, and we want to take the time now to show you some of those results. If we had applied the finalized project rules to the month of May 2016, two news stories would have surfaced as the most newsworthy events of the month. The first and most newsworthy was clearly the crash of EgyptAir Flight 804. The second most newsworthy event for that month was a 1,246,000 acre fire that occurred in Alberta and Saskatchewan, Canada, the so-called 2016 Fort Mcmurray wildfire. Now, in terms of the EgyptAir flight, the commercial flight dropped out of the sky on the 19th of May 2016. There were no distress calls from the cockpit, and the plane followed an immediate drop in altitude combined with sharp turns that seemed uncontrolled, nearly tumbling. The plane crashed on a flat surface, the Mediterranean Sea, with mountainous islands in the distance. Well, as it turns out, one of our remote viewers, Daz Smith, intending to remote view the most newsworthy event of the month, did describe the crash of EgyptAir Flight 804. His session, recorded live on video, is stunningly accurate with respect to what we know about the crash, especially how the plane dropped from the sky and crashed on a flat surface in a desolate area, since the middle of a sea or ocean is a desolate area. But he also describes what he perceives as the cause of the crash, which is much different from anything that has been reported in the mainstream news, or any news for that matter. This session was done in April 2016, the month before the event. So take a look at the session for yourself. Again, this is not a session that is officially part of our Time Cross project, since the project rules had not been finalized when the session was done. We are offering it to you here simply because it is interesting.
Hi there, so this is going to be target 1 for the new Farsight project. It doesn't have a target assigned to it yet, so I've made up the random number for this project, and I'm using the number 0811. So let's get straight to it. Okay, so there's energy, and there's motion, and this feels like it's a movement. It feels like it's mainly horizontal, and within the movement there feels like there's excited particles within an energy, and there's a forward thrust. And this feels controlled. So there's a forward thrusting movement here. Now this feels up high. Feels like there's lots of air, space around this movement. Yeah, nothing around it at all. Okay. Okay, it feels like there's an object. Structured object involved with this motion, and the structured object feels kind of linear but curved. Linear and curved. It feels sleek, smooth to the touch, feels white, grey, feels man-made, feels constructed. Yeah, so this feels like a structured object. I don't feel I don't sense any life, and I don't know why, but I don't sense any life. Why don't I sense life? I don't know. Anyway, I don't sense any life attributed to this, but it feels like there's a structured object. It feels like it's moving. It feels like it's moving through the sky or through the air or through space. Mainly horizontal, almost at a very, very slight angle of movement. Feels like there's a jet involved. I have to put an AOL of jet. I don't know if the jet's to do with the structured object or whether it's to do with this kind of energy, kind of particle kind of thing that's left almost like a wash, like a jet wash maybe. That's left almost like a wake from the motion of this structure. So let's see what else we get. Yeah, it feels like it's up high. It feels like it's in a, I won't say in space, but in a space. You know, it feels like there's lots of space around this structure as it's moving. Yeah, lots of air, lots of space around it, nothing else. Not in the close vicinity anyway. It seems to be on its own kind of thing. Okay, so let's see what we get here again. 08 and 11, there it is, and then there's this mass here, down. No. Okay, so here's our structured object. And it's moving along, it's in motion, generally in this direction, generally in that kind of fashion. Then there's a moment of chaos. There's an interruption. Something happens here. It's fast and it's decisive. There's an event, an interruption event, and that's here. And this causes some chaos in the movement. I see lots of tumbling. I see the shape kind of moving, and it's almost like lots of mix. If I followed like a path or a flight path of it, it's kind of like very circular, very mixed in a flight path of what this object does. So it goes into some kind of chaotic motion because of some kind of interruption here. Then after that, it's more than one object now. It's on a descent. The descent becomes a lot more direct and downwards motion and faster and more direct in a descent movement. Now I also see that after this area here, the object seems to have broken off into parts. There's a big main part still descending, but there are other smaller parts. They're also descending in a downwards direction. So it feels like if it was a single object before, this interruption event and the chaos and the movements from it caused it to maybe break up in some way, and it's breaking up now and it's heading in a downward kind of descent. Then what happens here is it feels like all these separate little bits hit a surface, and this surface feels like land, and it feels remote and dry. I don't sense any people. It feels like a remote location somewhere. It feels like a surface. Yeah, so it hits, and as this object hits the surface, it kicks up, it embeds into the ground a bit, but also kicks up lots of motion and energy here as well. And this causes a wave-like effect to ripple outwards from the hit area. But there's more than one hit area as well, because there are some smaller objects as well. As they hit, you kind of get this kind of like overlapping kind of here, and it all happens at different times as well. So you get these smaller ones that drop down, almost like chucking stones in a pool and seeing the ripples outwards, but you're chucking more than one stone, so you see multiple ripples as they interact. So yeah, so this is like energy and motion that radiates outwards from this hit type event. Okay, so let's try to see if we can get more. Let's try to see what the interruption event is here, because something clearly happens to cause this structured object to change course and direction and form. Yeah, changes course, direction and form from a single object to multiple objects. Alright, so we got our thing, and then there's the event. Here it is, the downward descent. And there's this mess here on the surface. So there's a surface. And there's a descent. Chaos here. This is just movement here. And this feels interacted with. This feels like it comes from a distance away. And what this feels like is heated waves and particles, almost like a beam, laser-like. This feels like it's intentional, and this feels like some kind of. It feels like if I had to draw it, it would be like a close-up of it would be like a multi-layered beam of light with these particles, superheated particles in it. But there's like a wave-like structure to this as well, but fast, and it travels a vast distance. So this feels like thousands of miles. Now, if I track the source of this down to where this comes from, it feels like there's another object in the air or space. Now this feels very linear, very square boxy, but I can't quite get my head around the shape. It feels dark. I'd say black or dark grey. Very linear and sharp on the edges. Boxy. Again, I don't sense any life with this as well. This feels like, and it feels like it can move in multiple directions. And I've got an AOL now of a satellite with this. So it feels like an object that's up in the sky, vast distance away, feels linear, feels dark, feels stealthy. It kind of looks and feels a bit like parts you would see on a stealth bomber or stealth aircraft. It's got that kind of black, kind of edged, kind of strange edge, kind of trapezoid, kind of boxy look about it. And this feels like it's up in the sky, up in the air, up in space. There's lots of space around it, and it feels like it interacts. And this feels like I don't sense any life, so this feels like it's remotely controlled or piloted. So this feels like a device, or a structured device that's in an area of space which directs some kind of energy type beam of light with weird energy, like a laser, but not like a laser. A microwave laser, a maser or something. Directs it towards this other object, causing it to change course, break down, go into chaotic movements, and then descend rapidly towards the surface. yeah, I think that's pretty much it. This object itself though has got a very strange shape. I can't quite, because at some points it feels kind of like this, but then when I see it another time it feels more triangular but with straight edges. And as I said, it's self-propelled as well. It can move in all directions, and it's just kind of sitting there thousands of miles away. I just see this interaction, this wave-like beam causes this device, this structure here to go haywire in a strange falling kind of don't know where it's going pattern. Bits start to break off as it starts to descend downwards into more little pieces. I keep seeing particles. The whole thing, that this whole target has something to do with particles, and I don't know if it's to do with this part here, or even some of the particles that may come outwards from this part here, but particles somewhere seem important here. And jet as well. A jet, and I don't know if it's like a jet of particles or of energy and motion. Seems to be lots of different things at play within this target here, but that's pretty much the gist of it. So in summary, seems like there's some kind of structured object moving through sky or space. Seems to be on a pretty much controlled trajectory, which is more or less horizontal but with a slight angle to it. Seems like there's some kind of interruption event where it almost gets fired upon or attacked or something, which is done by another object thousands of miles away, or a vast distance away at least, which seems to be using some kind of high energy beam of light plus energy, very strange, which disrupts the object, causes it to go into chaotic movements, break up, break down. It descends rapidly and hits a surface, and there are multiple tiny little small ones and a bigger one that hits the surface, and the surface feels like I say surface, but it feels like it's land, feels like it's remote, dry, dusty, hot. I can't sense any life anywhere within any of this target, which is interesting in itself. The object feels a bit stealthy, dark, secret, remotely piloted, so there is essentially someone behind this somewhere, but it feels like they're way away from up here, you know. I don't know why they're doing it either. So that's pretty much it on this one, I think. Yep, so that's my data on this one. As I said, the target doesn't exist yet. I've used the numbers 0811, which I pretty much made up from thin air. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what target this becomes in a few months' time.
Now, when Daz Smith submitted this session to me, he was not at all comfortable with it. It seemed too amazing to be real, especially since the event had not yet happened. He sent me the following email. I'm a bit worried now that this is just AOL, which means analytic overlay, as it just doesn't seem to be what I expected target-wise and feels very black, secret, experimental, and high-tech. It feels like a high-tech, high-orbit, man-made device in some kind of stealth shape designed that interrupts a flight path of something and causes it to divert or break up. This feels like it's over a vast distance, high in the air, space, lots of space, thousands of miles between them, again, which is not what I was expecting to get target-wise for a new base target. This feels more UFO, but only UFO because I don't know what I'm trying to describe or sketch, but that it is terrestrial, man-made. So you see, Daz was not expecting this, and he even doubted his own data. This, by the way, is perfect for remote viewing. When a remote viewer doubts his or her data, the data are usually correct. The doubt means that the conscious mind did not invent the data. The conscious mind never discounts its own stuff. So, when I hear such doubts from a viewer, that is normally a good sign. If I were to speculate, and if these remote viewing data are correct, I put them together with the idea that the United States was participating with other nations in international naval military exercises taking place in the Mediterranean at the time of the crash. Exercises called the Phoenix Express 2016 naval exercises. It is possible that the crash was a result of a mistake or accident with respect to the activation of a stealth defense satellite. The only other thing that might make sense is that there was something or someone on that plane that someone felt needed to be eliminated, and crashing it over the Mediterranean would minimize the possibility of additional casualties on the ground. Again, these are speculations. The entire remote viewing session is a bit of a puzzle. If it were not for the striking accuracy of the session data with respect to the crash and descent of the airplane, I would wonder about the other stuff involving the stealth satellite. But it is unclear how one part of the session might be so accurate if the other part is not also accurate, especially when the viewer himself was not expecting anything like what he perceived. Until we find out more, this will remain a bit of a mystery. Again, we offer this session to you simply because it is interesting and because it helps give you a bit more background into how we ended up finalizing the structure of the Time Cross project. Thanks for following the activities of the Farsight Institute, the central venue for full public projects involving remote viewing, as it is done using highly structured methodologies that are derivative from those developed by the United States military and used for espionage purposes. I hope you continue to follow the results of our monthly Time Cross project. It honestly is one of the most interesting remote viewing projects ever attempted. And I also hope you get a chance to watch some of our mysteries projects. By watching our mysteries projects, you help us pay the bills as we conduct the Time Cross project. We are offering our Time Cross project free to the public as a way to demonstrate the reality and potential of remote viewing. It costs us a few $1,000s each month, so your help by watching our mysteries projects is the only thing that pays the bills. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay ahead of the curve. Always remember to let the mainstream fade in the dust. Be there now.